Hello everyone. My name is Deadponic. I am back from, the purgatory that is, editing and all that. I just want to give you guys a quick update. I am fully recovered from my surgery, which was quite an interesting experience. Um, and for those of you wondering why I went in for surgery, I had to get a few teeth taken out, mainly my wisdom teeth, and the doctor and the nurses and the staff at the hospital was really nice. They were excellent. They were amazing, and I was just I didn't feel like I was nervous, but it was an interesting experience, and there was no like they didn't give me the cold shoulder, funny enough. In fact, when I went into the operating room, they actually put a warm blanket over me because I only just realized that hospitals are really cold. So just giving you that update. So okay, so this episode's gonna get quite personal, and it may trigger a few people. So fair warning, you have been warned. So this is gonna delve into quite a few personal things about me that I have never gone on record, and most people don't know about me, and that's the way I've kept it. I've tried to keep my YouTube life and my personal life two very separate things, and that's the way I prefer it, and that's a me thing. And when we get into another topic later, you'll understand why. So because this video is coming out on Father's Day, I have to kind of get this out of my system. I've wanted to talk about this for a while, but I was planning to do it in August, but I decided to do it here so you guys have understanding of where my thought process is and how I am as a person, and in terms of just overall mental health. So for the last 10 years, I haven't celebrated Father's Day, mainly because I don't have a father. And to best explain that, basically, my dad passed away in 2017 when I was 17 years old, funny enough. And that just, that moment has come to be something that has haunted me, and in order to explain that, I have to explain what happened. So it was near the end of August, and my dad had gotten sick. Now, he never gets sick, and when he gets sick, it's a big deal. And I've inherited that trait from him, where if I catch the flu or something, I go down like a light. I'm mostly just gonna be sleeping, or I'm going to be, in the bathroom and all that. And I've never caught COVID, thankfully. I never caught swine flu, which is surprising because I was there when that epidemic broke out. And I never got any other major illnesses, like whooping cough or bird flu or anything crazy like that. So the Thursday he gets sick, and he spends most of the weekend on the couch asleep, trying to, sleep it off, essentially. And the Saturday night before everything changed, the last thing he said to me was, "Could you get me a glass of water?" And that was the last thing he said to me. I got him his glass of water, I said goodnight, and I went to bed. Next morning, he's laying on the couch, and one arm is draped over his chest, and I thought that was kind of weird. So mom's out doing laundry and the co-op laundromat, because we lived in a co-op and the laundromat was in the main building, and we lived in basically a townhouse. And she comes back, and dad's not moving. What's going on? So she's panicking. She goes over to one of the neighbors, and I finally said, "Okay, well, this isn't right," and I called 911. Now, the person on the other end, she basically said, "Oh, can you check for a pulse?" I didn't know how to check for a pulse. So and she also said, okay, well, if he's not breathing and you don't have a pulse, you know how to do CPR? And I said, no. And she said, okay, the paramedics are going to be there in about a couple minutes. So they come inside and they load him up on a stretcher. And my mom and my sister, they're dressed in their, everyday clothes, and I'm still in my pajamas. And there was also a police officer there. So the police officer has us go in her cruiser, and she drives us to the hospital. So, and then we get the news that he passed away. And the way he passed away was because first his liver went, and then his heart went. So they tried to restart his heart, and it didn't work. So they called it. And at that moment my sister and I were actually taken to a separate room while my mom was being told the news. And then she tells me what happened, and it just felt like time just completely froze. It's one of those things that if you've ever experienced the passing of a loved one, you'll understand what I mean. But it hurts so much. And then the police officer, she took us down to the station. She wanted to interview us, make sure, there's no foul play and all that. And I talked with one of the inspectors, and I told him, well, there was the one time where I accidentally gave my dad Oxycontin instead of his regular pills that he normally takes for pain. And well, they didn't think that was suspicious, and they said, okay, well, there's no foul play, so we're just going to take you home. And the first thing that happens is, well, there was actually blood on the carpet, and that was the first time I realized that my dad wasn't coming home. And this was particularly traumatic, not just for me, but particularly traumatic for my sister. And I'll explain why in a little bit, but she has neither my sister or I have actually come to terms with the trauma, and that says quite a lot. And over the course of those couple of years, the first year was probably the worst because, friendships were failing because I had massive depression, I had massive survivor's guilt, and I had massive, I guess you could say it's PTSD, because it was particularly traumatic, and that led to a lot of issues. And then eventually I went on, I'm still on depression pills or antidepressants, and that it helps, even though I feel like it hasn't helped in some cases. In fact, there has been multiple times where I've gone cold turkey, and I have suffered for it. And that it didn't feel right. And then not even a couple months later, I'm back in school. I'm in grade 11, 12, I think. 12. I'm pretty sure I'm in 12. Yeah, I'm in 12. But I don't know how to describe it, but it didn't. I'm sorry, I'm still trying to gather my thoughts here, but I effectively, it wasn't easy, and I suffered because of it. Now, I did have a good support engine, or a support group, and I did go see the teen counselor almost pretty much weekly, or even sometimes even daily. And that really helped me personally. And then, well, not even a couple months later, something else happened. And, to keep YouTube happy, I'm not going to go into full details. But basically, my sister was attacked. I'm just going to leave it at that. And I felt like I had failed because I was not there with her to keep her safe. And that weighed very heavily on my mind for a long time until things just, they kind of slowed down, and I was very much, I eventually came to terms with it. I wouldn't say I got over it, I just came to terms with it. Which, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly reasonable. So, there's that. And August will mark 10 years since my dad passed away. And, tomorrow's going to be, well, as of the beginning of this video, tomorrow's going to be Father's Day. And each Father's Day has kind of gotten easier, but for my mom, it hasn't been easy because my granddad passed away, and that particularly had quite the effect. It had quite an effect on my mom. And when my granddad passed away, I wasn't even allowed to say goodbye because it was only immediate family, and I consider myself immediate family. But my grandmom said, "Oh, you have to stay home and look after your cousin and your sister." And they had the personal support worker for my sister, which I'll get to that in a little bit. But that was another moment that really got me, was the passing of my granddad, because it turns out he had cancer and it was getting worse. And eventually it got to a point where, well, he was effectively on his deathbed. And I never got to say goodbye to him, which I don't resent that decision, but I just wanted to say goodbye to him because I had a lot of decent memories with my granddad. And I just wanted to say goodbye to him. And I never got to. And that hurt. Okay, so let's move on to the other section of the personal side of things. So, in order to understand this, you kind of have to understand a few things. Well, the first thing was when I was in grade 10, I think it was grade 9. So I took they gave me a, not an examination, but more of a an assessment. And they concluded that they diagnosed me with what is called a nonverbal learning disability. Now, you could argue that this is basically the Canadian version of Asperger's or autism. And you wouldn't be wrong. But it's the fact that it's the way my disability is that makes it kind of different from everything else. See, I'm very bad at explaining things, so I'll try to explain this as best as I can. To put it simply, I cannot multitask in the traditional sense. For example, if you give me a set of tasks, I'm just overwhelmed. I will not be able to do, I have to do everything one at a time. And I'm also a visual learner, which in and of itself, most people that I know are more auditory, but in my case, I am a visual learner. I am very visual. PowerPoint's great. Reading off of a sheet, I have to have the sheet right there so I know what you're talking about. Because I'm a visual person. I read a lot of books when I was a kid, and that would explain a great many things. But I just that whole thing about not being able to do multiple things at once, it does affect my ability to do certain things. I cannot I can't do multiple I can't make multiple videos at once. I have to focus. If I get bogged down with too many projects, then I'm just overwhelmed. It's one of the reasons why some projects, they take forever to do, the Versus series, my Versus videos. They take forever, but once I'm focused on it, I just that's actually one of the reasons why my visual editing is I would say it's top notch. Not to toot my own horn here, but I say it's pretty top notch considering who like I'm being compared to. Like, for example, like I think my visual style is more akin to Jen's Rise when it comes to the Versus videos, which, you know, you're not wrong by saying that, but I have a kind of a more traditional way of visual editing. And that also translates to other things. Like I don't pick up on a lot of social cues, and I have difficulty making friends and also, you know, maintaining friendships, which is why it's so important that I have the support group or the people around me that I do, like my best friends. And this also has led to emotional outbursts, and even I still have like what I refer to as episodes because to keep YouTube happy and all that. But it feels like like a lot of people will say this, like regarding depression. It feels like you're fighting an uphill battle, and I'm constantly in that uphill battle. But occasionally you'll find like a small, I would say like cliff where you can like, what's the word for it? Like you can like rest and, you know, catch your bearings. And every so often I'll get like a sense of like pride or a little bit of a happy state, or like a little giddy state where I'm overly excited. Now you could say that I might have a little bit of a case of ADHD, but I'm not 100% sure about that. I would have to get assessed for that. But I know for a fact that, for all intents and purposes, I am neurodivergent, to simplify it. And that has been something that has effectively come to define has dictated a lot about my life. And the whole idea of, I'm never going to have a true relationship. I'm never going to, you know, settle down and raise a family because I can't handle stress and I can't handle pressure, even though I often joke, pressure. I love pressure, or I eat pressure for breakfast. I could not handle pressure. But that's not exactly true because I took a parenting course, and yeah, okay, sure. I technically failed the parenting course, but there's a lot going on with that than just what actually that perception of what happened. I mean, I did do pretty good with the robot baby, and I did very well with the egg baby. So I don't know, but that's more an assessment of. I say it's like it's a test of character, right? For being to be a parent, you have to accept that your kid is going to take up almost 90% of your time, and you have to accept that. And you also have to accept that it's going to be it's a stressful environment. It's also a stressful time because your partner will have to go to work and you have to look after the baby, and then you switch around. Sometimes you might even become a stay-at-home dad, which for me, that actually wouldn't be such a bad thing, believe it or not. I'm actually not against that. It's when you hit the 2s and 3s, and then once you hit like 8 years old, you have to like say, okay, well, how do I address certain questions that my kid may have? And, well, what would I name my kid? If I ever had a kid, like, I know for a fact if I had a son, I'd probably name him Obi or something like that. I haven't really decided on what that, but if it was a girl, it would probably be either Leia or Violet. those are definitely the two that I would, but I would obviously, consult my partner about that. But that is something that has always kind of scared me because of the way my disability is. I don't know if I could handle the stress. But I've been watching a lot of cinema therapy, and there's one episode where they talk about the whole, particularly with Monsters Inc., where one of them says, well, sometimes a parent just needs to like vent, and sometimes the child will see their parent as like a scary monster, but there's no ill intent behind it. It's just a healthy way to get the anger out. But sometimes the kid gets caught in the line and they perceive it like, oh, my parent is angry at me and is yelling at me. And no, that's not the case at all. And I think that speaks volumes to one of the things that I learned from watching a bunch of movies, like particularly The Incredibles 2, is done properly, as Edna says, done properly, parenting is a heroic act. But you can never be a proper parent. Parenting is something you have to learn over time. And, all those parenting classes, they don't prepare you for the stress, the long nights of no sleep, or anything like that. And that says a lot. And I've always asked myself, how would I react to my partner saying, oh, guess what, you're going to be a parent? I would probably react like how it should have ended Anakin would. I would be absolutely excited, but I would also be like, oh my god, I'm gonna have a kid, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, what am I gonna do? Now, I am technically in a financially stable situation, but I would have to. I'm having problems finding a job, or even just maybe it's because I'm lazy. I don't know, but I just feel like I'm not I just have so many I'm having a lot of trouble actually finding a job, because it's a job where I'm not interested, or it doesn't suit me, or it's something that's too specific, or you need a very specific set of skills in order to qualify for that job. And that does bug me a little bit, but thankfully the city I'm in, we do have our fair share of local jobs that are always hiring. Your Walmarts, your Zehrs, your even the movie theater. I used to work at a movie theater. I don't know if they're still hiring or when their hiring period is. And even something like a local card shop, or like a local game shop. That's one place I would definitely want to 100% work at, because casual environment, and just I'm familiar with most of the stuff, in terms of board games, in terms of Magic and Dungeons and Dragons. Those are things that I'm interested in and I'm passionate about, and I feel I do believe that I am uniquely qualified regarding that. And I'm also I'm fairly outgoing when it comes to specifically just engaging people. And I'm also I'm very professional. I'm also very good at I have to complete this order. I have to manage the till, and I can run events. I'm very good at. I'm actually pretty good at that, actually. It's the question of there was this new thing that I learned about called divulging. So if you have a disability, when is the best time to divulge? Well, usually the best way to divulge is usually either at the end of the interview, or just after you get hired, if you get hired. And that has many advantages, but it has a lot of disadvantages. Now, discrimination does exist within the workplace, but as it turns out, you can't reject somebody based off their disability. And I feel the best time to divulge would be just after the interview. So say, hey, if you are considering hiring me, here you go. Here's what I like. This is my disability. This is my what do you call it? Not weaknesses, but more limitations. Limitations is what it's called. Yeah, it's limitations. And that is very important, especially for me. And now I have been known to, we all make mistakes, but the one mistake the one thing I remember when I first got my second job, because I used to be a paper boy, when I worked at a small little cafe, is I accidentally locked myself out of the building in the back when I was taking out the garbage. Sorry. Sorry. I think I got caught in my throat. Yeah, so I was taking out the garbage, and the back door, when it closed, you couldn't open it to get back inside. So I had to walk all the way around the building just to get inside. And it was just, it was hilarious. And this was in the middle of winter too. And it was like, oh my goodness. And yeah, we had a couple good laughs. And this happened to me not once, but twice. Which is weird that it happened twice. But when I worked at the movie theater, it never happened because I was very, very careful about how, and we always had like one or two people, actually taking out the trash. And the movie theater was actually quite an interesting experience because I learned so many things about how a movie theater actually works. And one of those things is the way that they show the movie, the way, like, the most expensive thing in the theater is actually not the popcorn itself, but the butter. And what they do is they actually, they'll freeze the butter for the next shift in the freezer, and in order to, get it up to, liquid form, they have to melt it. And if you're not careful, you can actually start a fire if you're not careful. But I remember the most aggravating thing about working at the movie theater was cleaning the popcorn machine. That was a nightmare. I don't know what it was, but that's why I always said, oh, can I clean the fountain towers? And they were like, okay, yeah, sure, okay. And I, did the trash, I refilled the ice. I actually did work at the as an usher for a brief time. And I actually did clean out the movie, the cinema theaters. And it was due to scheduling conflicts, unfortunately, I was let go. And it was like, okay, that's fine. And they said, well, once you get your life sorted, you can always come back. And it was like, oh yeah, okay, sure, yeah, it's perfect. I would love to work there. So yeah. So that has been a very long and very arduous rant, but I hope you guys enjoyed listening, and I hope you guys learned something about me. But I will see you next time. See you all later.